So, is it the menu
So,
in Chinese as well?
of course it is.
Wow, 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 wow.
Everything
How
will be in
how do you
Chinese.
even order?
You find a restaurant with images.
um,
Make sure there's pictures.
Hello, Julia. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode. How are you doing today?
I am very, very good. Very excited to be part of this podcast. We've spent a few weeks planning this, so very much looking forward to talking a little bit about China.
To be fair, mainly you spent few weeks planning this because you said, "Oh my God, I have to prepare. I cannot." I was like, "Look, let's just have a conversation. Don't worry about that." But I think
That's
that's completely normal, and I admire your, how can I say, dedication to this. I really admire it, and I'm so looking forward to hear all the things you have to share. And as you know, as you see the title, as you maybe see the video, the background shows that we are going to be talking about China. But before we go to China, Julia, let's talk
yes.
about you because I have never met you, and I'm curious to hear your story and where you are, where you're from, and how are we talking about China because you are not from China. Can you share a
Exactly.
few things with us, please?
So I thought, why not make it very simple and show you a little bit? You guys can guess. If you guys see this and you know where I'm from, then good for you. You deserve a treat. I'm an Argentinian. I studied in China, or I finished my degree in Argentina. When I was probably 25, I think, I finished my first degree. I studied translation in English, but for legal documents. So I'm half a lawyer, although I'm not really passionate about that. And then I decided to continue my studies, which I had been doing already in Chinese. So I moved to China. I had a scholarship and I fell in love with the country. I realized what many people say about China, which is you will never get the language, it's impossible. It's not true. You can actually get it if you study hard. It's a very rigid way of learning. It's very different from the Western way of learning languages. But if you're willing to commit the time and the effort and you have passion, then you actually get it. And it's amazing the world of opportunities you have when you understand Chinese. So when I had that year, I came back to Argentina, and within 2 weeks, I had applied for my next scholarship, which was to do a master's in international relations. So I ended up going back to China within the next 4 months, and I stayed there for 5 to 6 years. I did my master's in the north of China, which is the coldest part. And when I finished my master's, I said, okay, should I go back to Argentina? Should I go to Europe and work there? And I decided, no, let's have some real experience in China. So I got a job and I moved to the east near Shanghai. So I've been there, or I was there for probably 6 to 7 years.
Oh, hold on.
And
How many
now,
years you spent
yeah,
in? I'm confused. You went 6 years, then 6, 7.
so many
How
years.
many years you spent
Yeah.
in China?
I really, I actually don't, I think it's been seven in total because things have changed a little bit. I started, as I told you, being full-time student. Then I did a master's for 2 more years. And then I moved to the South where I worked for an NGO for a year and a half. And then I decided to work for the for-profit sector. And then I was probably there for 2 to 3 more years.
Hmm.
So three before, and then three more. And that's when I decided I wanted to be in China, but not necessarily all the time. So I came back to Argentina. I kept my job with China. So I find myself traveling back and forth to China. And I'm happy my company doesn't mind.
What? It's not like you travel from Italy to Spain. Argentina to China is a different thing. Oh my
I know, right?
goodness.
So yeah, they had to accept it somehow, and I'm sure it. Okay, we will talk about China later, but just like every other country or most countries, they believe their country is the safest, and they have good reason to believe so. And every time something happens to me when I'm traveling or in Argentina, I always get the call from my boss, Julia. shouldn't you come back to China? It's safer here. You're safe here. So that's how Chinese people see China, the safest place in the world.
Wow, that's
So
interesting.
yes.
Okay, so but you travel. So where do you live now?
So I moved back to Argentina, and within 4 months, I realized I didn't want to live here, although it's a beautiful country.
Mhm.
So I went to Europe. I'm half Italian. I have two passports. I have an Argentinian passport and an Italian passport, which is very common for Argentinians. So yeah, I was looking for opportunities in Europe, and I decided to just keep my Chinese job. So I just would move back and forth from Europe. And because of COVID, I was visiting my family, and I finally didn't manage to leave. So I've been in Argentina for the longest ever. I
Mm.
think it's been 7 months in Argentina. It's crazy.
Okay, so now you're in Argentina, but you're actually living in Italy, and you just cannot.
I'm in Argentina, but I'm a little bit of a nomad. I've been
Mhm.
moving around Europe, and I think I will continue to do that for a little bit longer once the COVID
Mhm.
is past, and probably just keep on visiting China twice a year
Yeah.
and try to escape as soon as possible because your bosses generally don't want you to leave. So
Oh.
it's trying to find a way.
I guess with the
Yeah.
language, as you said, if you're persistent, that's gonna work. I mean, I guess it's not just with any other language, but with anything else you start doing. How would you say hello, welcome to the podcast in Chinese?
大家好，欢迎你们来这个 podcast 是 Pavel 的 podcast，欢迎你们。That would be it.
Wait, what did you say at the beginning? I thought it's ni hao.
Yeah, 你好, means you, 好 means good. So you're good means
Okay.
hello to you.
Ah.
But when you're talking to an audience, generally you say 大家好. 大家 means 大 means big, 家 house. So I'm talking to everyone. Hello, everyone. Um, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, can you say it
So
again? I couldn't.
你好.
Can you say it again? I didn't hear
So
it.
we have 你好
Yeah, the other one.
is for you. 大家好.
大家好.
That very good.
I know, right?
Wow.
大家好.
You you should study Chinese. You sound really good.
How do you say
That's
thank you?
amazing. I'm
How do you say
surprised.
how do you say thank you?
谢谢,
谢谢.
谢谢,
谢谢.
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 Ooh, okay.
大家好.
Very good.
谢谢.
Okay. That's fantastic.
Okay, we learned
That's really good.
we learned some new words already. 大家好. 谢谢. Perfecto. So, 谢谢for
Yeah.
showing us this part of China. No, two words basically. All right, let's talk about then. I know that you told me you have like a second home, which is somewhere in the south of China. What was the name of the city?
Yes. So the name of the city is Hangzhou. Hangzhou.
Hangzhou.
It's H-A-N. Good. Hangzhou. So it's quite famous. It's a very touristy area.
Mhm.
Incredibly beautiful. It has thriving business. It's a trade region, Zhejiang in China. It's located on the east part of China, which is the most developed one. And at the
Mhm.
same time, it has some of the most beautiful landscapes and Buddhist temples and every kind of real attraction you would imagine in China. So I always recommend it as the perfect place to visit if you don't really have much time to go around China. Because you will get the new, you will get the technological part, you will get the traditional part, you will get nature, you will get food, and you will be very well connected because it's only 40 minutes away from Shanghai.
Okay, so but that's in the south of China, but we're not gonna be
That's
talking
in
about
the
this.
east.
Oh, oh yeah, that's in the east. Okay, but we're gonna be talking about Beijing today, right?
Yes,
Which is further
because
north.
you cannot go to, yes, you can't go to China and skip Beijing. Beijing is, there's a reason why it's the capital. It's the starting point to any kind of adventure, any kind of story you can have about China. It's the imperial capital. It's Beijing means northern capital. That's why it's Bei. Bei means north.
Ah.
Um, it was it has a history of over probably 3,000 years. Chinese
Hmm.
people are very proud of their history. So probably when you first meet a Chinese person, they will tell you, you know about our history, right? You know how difficult our language is, right? You've been to Beijing, it's incredible, right? You've tried our food, it's amazing, right? That's Chinese people. They're
I
very proud
see.
of their country.
Well, with all these dynasties they had, I can understand that. So you're saying that every Chinese will actually ask you, like, have you tried our food? Have you been to the capital? Have you seen this? Does that mean that, if not all, but the majority of the Chinese people have visited the capital just for the sake of it, like just to understand what it is? Would you say that?
That's a really actually very accurate question. Why? Because as we know, China it went through more like closed up phase until the death of Mao Zedong in 1976. So there was famine. There were very hard times for Chinese people, and
Mm.
not many people could go to Beijing. So it is kind of a life trait you would do. Like at some point, you should find yourself in Beijing. Now, as the middle income people are able to move around and travel, it's a priority to be in Beijing. So you can see more
Priority?
and more people. But yes, you have to be in Beijing. If you want to understand your country, you should go to the capital. So it's beautiful. The reality is, people in their lifetime, they will. I'm talking about maybe people who come from rural areas in China.
Yep.
They will they will make this a priority to visit Beijing at some point. But middle income people, of course, they have visited Beijing many times.
Mhm.
It's a trade center, diplomatic center. That's where the government is. But yeah, if you go to Beijing, you will not only see people from Beijing, you will see many rural people, and you can see the difference. Why? Because probably when they see you, they will run towards you to take a picture
Well,
because they're not used to seeing a foreigner.
was that the case with
So,
you?
oh my God, yes. It's, I had to take so many pictures. It was picture all the time. I can later share pictures with you, taking pictures with babies, with grandpas, with grandmas, holding so many babies all the time. It's picture time. That's how it is in China the first time.
So now we know what it is to be famous.
Exactly. Thank God it only lasted a few days because I'm not good with that kind of feeling.
Okay, so we know that Chinese people would like to explore their capital. I really admire that. I mean, it's
Yes.
I always, in the past few years, I realized that people aim to go somewhere else. Like if they live in England, they book Paris flights to Paris and then Spain and other countries, but they don't explore their own country as well. And I was guilty in that. Now every time I go back to Bulgaria, I explore something there. So, what can you tell
Hmm.
us a bit about Chinese people in general? Like, can you tell us some traditions maybe, or how are they as people?
That's actually a fantastic comparison, what you just said right now, because you really need to understand their culture and their history
Hmm.
and their country. Let's start with the word China. In Chinese, you say 中国. 中 means center. 国 means country. So they consider themselves to be the middle kingdom for thousands and thousands of years, just like, for example, Europe thought it was the center of the
Hmm.
developed world.
Yeah.
In Asia, China considered itself to be the middle kingdom. It was, of course, a huge power. So all other countries or regions or empires, they would pay their tributes over to China. So this is how it went. And this is how the country developed as itself, like its own identity. So people would usually, because it's such a vast, huge country, people would travel within the country. And only in the last probably 40, 30 years, people have started to begin to understand what it is to travel outside of the country.
Hmm.
That being said, they still consider China to be the best country. It's very safe, very safe in China. You can walk around 3 in the morning and you will feel completely safe. So people tend to choose their own country. That is very true. People in China, they have some questions. When you meet a Chinese person, it's very common to hear always the same question. So if you check online, you might even find the t-shirts that Lao Wai, which is what we're called, which is foreigner. We tend to make some inscriptions because it's so funny. You get on a taxi and you will get the same questions. It's like, 你是哪里的? So where are you from? Are you married? If you're over 23 years old, the second question will be, are you married?
Why? Whoa, whoa,
If
that's so interesting. So I would assume that because in, let's say, in Europe, is like if you reach 30, or you're gonna be have to be married, maybe have kids, and then in China probably it's the same thing, but it's more cultural, and you have to do this at younger age. Is that the case?
Yes, of course, of course. Like you're 23, 24, and they will start with a question. So in my case, because I'm over 30 and I'm not married, they ask me, 结婚了吗? No. Oh, so you're divorced. It's like, no, I'm just not married. There's no option.
Wow.
And then they will always, actually true, they will always tell you, wow, your Chinese is so good. And you have only said hello,
Uh-huh.
but they're shocked that you can speak two words in Chinese many times. Um, and then they will probably follow up with, did you how do you find Chinese? Because isn't it very difficult? They are very proud of their language, and rightly so. It's very complicated and very beautiful, but they will always say, oh, it's very difficult, right? It's a very difficult language. Yes, it's very difficult, but we can learn it. So this is another typical question you will get. You will talk about marriage. You will talk about countries. I don't know if you say Bulgaria, if they would know much, but if you say Argentina, the only comment you get is, "Oh, Messi, Maradona." So
Of course, of course.
it's every single time.
Well,
So
that is so
yeah,
curious, because in Europe they will ask like your parents and maybe friends. They will ask like, "Oh, isn't it time to get married?" But in China, even foreign and like even taxi drivers and people in the shop is gonna ask
of
you these
course,
things.
of course, of course, of course. Oh, definitely, definitely. Question number 2 or 3 will be that,
I'm
and
married.
they will be
Okay, so
very curious. And if
what
it,
happens? What happens if you say yes, I'm married? Like, oh, good for you, or oh, can I meet him? Or do you have picture? Like, what's happening next?
oh no, they would be like, okay, she's playing with the social norms. It's good for her. So, oh, you're married, good. How many children? Are the children in China? How do you find your life here? They're always very excited to know what you feel about their country.
Well, so they want to basically
So
know
they will,
your whole life story and what's happening.
yes, oh yes, for sure. If you give them space, they will be. And people say that sometimes Chinese people are more distant or they're not as communicative, but the truth is it's language. But they're very, very curious about the outside world. As I'm telling you, for many years they were more isolated. So as Chinese people, you can see they're moving around more. You see more foreigners coming to China. There's
Mhm.
a huge community of expats. So it makes sense that they would be very interested in learning about you. The problem is they don't know how to ask and they can be very shy. That's true about Chinese people. So you give them space, you smile, and most of the time you will get a very nice response. I can promise you that. They're very, very humble and they're very good people.
Okay, very good people, very humble. That's good to know. Probably things that we actually already knew, but I think we already know these things, but when you experience it, you don't expect to be at that level. And I can understand that. I've been working with Chinese, Japanese as well. They are like very
Hmm.
very strict work ethic, work, work, work. I've worked with Japanese on a ship, and they were all about work, work, work. They see me having a break, like, what are you doing? It's time to go back to
Oh,
work. Yeah.
really?
I mean, they wouldn't be
I think that's more Japanese than
is
Chinese.
it? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure. For sure.
What about any traditions then?
Oh, there's so many traditions.
Okay, just cover.
For example,
I would
well,
assume
there was,
just cover one or two.
there's let's see. One thing that I really love about Chinese people, and it translates to the workplace, is the way they, for example, health.
Hold on.
Everything goes
The
back to
way the
very
way they what?
health. The way they see, the way they experience the connection with nature, the connection with their bodies, their connection with their surroundings.
Okay.
So this is how traditional Chinese medicine came into being, right? So, for example, you feel bad, you have a headache. Most of the time, the solution to everything is like, 你都要喝，你喝水多一点. Like you should be drinking water.
Yes,
That's the solution to all the maladies in China.
I agree. I
So,
agree. I
no,
agree.
my God, you are so.
That's a how. Maybe I'm half Chinese.
Oh my God, that's so good. True. And everything, you have to drink hot water. So everything in China, tradition is hot water for everything. So you have a headache, you have almost like a fever, drink some hot water. You're feeling like something, you might come down with the flu, have some hot water. So people are drinking tea all the time, and it's a huge tradition in China. Some places you will have the traditional, like the little teapot where you will experience how they pour the tea. It's a beautiful thing to learn about, actually, and it's good for stress relief. So, people out there who want to find something new, go for tea. Um, and if you go further south, that's where you have all the tea fields in China. So, the areas that are more connected maybe to, let's say, Vietnam or Myanmar that share a border. That's where we have the huge tea fields in China. And you can really get the true experience of having the tea session. So you can sit down with someone and they will help you with that. So, that being said, moving back to nowadays, we go to the workplace. If you go into your office, you will always have the tea sets. Always. It's very, very common. So if you see anyone working in the morning, it's not very usual to see people having coffee,
Hmm.
but certainly adding any kind of herb you would have probably never seen before outside of China. And they just pour it into a glass, add hot water, and that's their tea. It's not the tea bag. China doesn't use tea bags. So
No.
everything is about the tea. No,
Here
at all.
I can add some things here. First of all, I was just going to say something about the tea, but first of all, when you talk about tea bags, there was a merchant. I think he was from USA back many years ago, and he was sending samples to people, to try the tea, and he was using silk bags, and the people should
Oh,
have been open the silk bag, use the tea. But what they were doing, they were dipping the silk bag in the hot water. And when he found out, he was like, okay, maybe that's very handy. He just replaced the silk bag because it was more expensive with than these normal bags, and that's how these tea bags came along.
really?
Yes, curious. That's one.
Okay. I like it.
And I know, right?
Nice.
And then the other thing, when you
It's,
said when you said
yeah.
about the teas, probably the biggest connection I had with China was when I was working in a Chinese restaurant. It was here in UK, not in China. The restaurant is called Ping
Okay.
Pong, and we had this Chinese beer, Tsingtao. Um,
Qingdao.
exactly, Tsingtao. We had this Chinese
Qingdao.
beer, and we yeah, that was the first time I ate dumplings. That was the first time I got to
Oh.
understand what is dumpling. And then the number four, that means death. There is not even number four in the elevators. Like they avoid
Yeah.
number four everywhere. Um, and then the other thing is that we had different type of teas, like many teas. And we have these blossoming
Mm.
teas where you put a ball in the hot water and it blossoms. It was
Sure.
we were selling them in glasses, not just cups, so you can see what's
Yeah, yeah.
happening. Was really interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then I went for a training for the teas, and what they told me, it was very curious. I This blew my mind. So when you exclude the teas, which are herbal ones like chamomile and all these things, all
Mhm.
the other teas are all coming from one herb. They just do them in a separate way somehow.
Yeah, that is true.
Oh,
I'm not an expert,
yeah.
I'm not an expert, but it is true that many different teas, it depends on how much time they leave it to dry or what kind of process they go through. I
Yeah.
have a friend actually from South Africa, and he became an expert on teas. So all he does is he prepares his little tea, little set. And what they do is they have some clay ornaments. And when they prepare the tea, usually you will have a conversation with the person who's giving you the tea. And they prepare, as I told you, without the tea bag, a little pot, and they will keep on adding water. So it's not like this is precious, it's not like coffee, you will only have a cup. So what they will do is sometimes, just for the sake of it, they will start pouring tea on top of this clay little statues,
Mm.
because they feel like water is, everything is about fluidity. So because it just runs, the water runs, it's a beautiful thing to see. So sometimes while you're drinking tea with the person, you get your little cup, you always get little bowls. They will sometimes just pour the tea on top of the statues. So they have a little Buddha, and they have like little pigs because they bring good luck. So they're just, you drink tea, and then you pour the tea on top of a little statue by your side. It's really curious. It's really
It is.
interesting,
And
the
when you
whole,
say clay
yeah.
ornaments, I thought about your ornament that you have there.
The mate?
Yeah. This special
Oh,
mug that you have there, or whatever you call it.
yeah. I really, yeah, we should do a separate podcast about mate in Argentina. But I never thought about sharing it with them. I actually should have,
You never thought about
at
what?
least with people. Sharing the mate with these people.
That's what I told
Um,
you.
I
The Argentinian girl that I used to
yeah.
live with, she didn't share it. She kept it for herself.
That's so strange. That's so strange. Generally, we do share it, but every time I remember, I would have my mate
Yeah.
at work,
Uh-huh.
and I would leave it. And one day I left it just there, and I went home.
Yeah.
And I'm very lazy. I don't wash it very often, but it's okay. It's herbs. And I got a message from a coworker on Monday saying in Chinese, but Julia, I'm sorry, please come to the office. Something is rotten on your table, on your desk. I'm like, what happened? It's like, I don't know, but something is horrible. Something, I don't know. We found it. I was like, I can't come to the office today. Can you please send me a picture? And it was my mate. I was like, no, I just didn't wash my cup. It's normal. And they're like, oh, it's not rotten. And we thought it was like a dead something. It's like, no, it's an Argentinian thing. Don't worry about it. So, yeah, they don't understand. Yeah.
Ah, okay, okay. We're already half an hour in the podcast, which flew without knowing. Let's talk about
Oh my God.
Beijing. Yeah, definitely we will not have
Let's talk
time.
about Beijing.
Definitely will not have time to go to southern to the east part where your second home is.
No,
But let's talk about Beijing now,
no.
and let's start with what can we see in Beijing,
I'm going to give you just 1 minute so that you guys fall in love with China. So let
please.
me tell you why you need to come to China. So, number one, you will take the time, probably you will take a week, and you will study the 20 most common characters. That way, you will understand the culture. You will be able to kind of maybe have a glimpse of a menu when you go and get your food. You will be able to understand what noodle means. You will be able to see what rice means. And there's a history behind every single character. So, for people out there who are very curious or who are looking for something new to learn, try to get some characters in. That's beautiful. So, language is a reason why you want to come to China. Number two, history. As I told you, over 5,000 years of history. You go to different regions in China, and you can see how different um, dynasties and how different cultures impacted the development of the country. So, architecture changes, the way people look is different. The way people talk is different. There's thousands of dialects in China. Main language is Mandarin, and then the second language is Cantonese, which you can speak in Guangzhou, further south, and in Hong Kong. Otherwise, it's Mandarin. Then minorities. This is the reason why I fell in love with this country. So China is 92% Han. which means this particular minority, when you see a Chinese person and you say, oh, he must be Chinese. Why? Because you're seeing this ethnic group called the Han. 92% of 1.3 billion people, that's the population of China, they belong to the Han minority. So you have Han, and then you have 55 other groups, but those only take up only 8% of the population. Of course, China is 1.3 billion, so even an 8% is a big number. So you want to see minorities, you want to discover how different people live, you want to see different ways of dressing, you want to see how different people live. You come to China, you will find about probably 56 minorities in one country. You go to the south, you will see more. You go to the north, you will see others. You go to Yunnan and you will see probably, I think, 24 out of the 55 other minority groups in China. You will see them all in one province. And they're very distinguishable. So you can see the way they dress is different, the way they talk is different. It's beautiful. And if you go to certain parks, they're even separate. They have their own dress and their own dance. So you can go to a park and say, okay, I'm going to visit this minority, and they're dancing. And then you go to another side of the park and you see other people playing maybe a Chinese chess, and you can see they're dressed up differently. So you can go like do a little of a world tour in one country. It's beautiful. Another thing for entrepreneurs, you choose China because you want to grow. If, for example, a person like you, Pavel, my God, if you were in China, you would take over. It's for people who have. I'm not joking. It's for people who want to have a lot of ideas and they're, well, I just want a fertile land. That's China. You have an idea and probably within the next 2 weeks you will have a website and people will be buying your stuff. That's how China works right now. It's very, very active. And finally, as I told you, safety. It's very safe. So I've never encountered any problem traveling around China. That being said, because of the development of China, a big issue is pollution, but they're really working on it. So chances are, if you go to Beijing, you will get blue skies. That's the reason why you come to China. All of that. Minorities, for me, are one of the biggest reasons. And then Beijing, yes, that's where you start your trip. It's the northern capital. It has over 3,000 years of history. You can see the Qing dynasty, which was the biggest, or at least the most prominent dynasty you will see in terms of architecture.
Sorry, I just want to ask something. Sorry to interrupt you, but I just found you said Beijing means the north capital. Which was the
Yes.
older capital? Was it somewhere in the south?
There was a, have you ever heard of Nanjing?
No.
No? Nanjing, well, there's other bad reasons why it's known, but that means southern capital.
So that was the like
So
not the first capital, but the previous capital, probably.
yeah, so at some point, for example, when the Japanese took over or during previous
Yeah.
invasions in China, they would move the capital from one place to the other. But Beijing has been continuously the capital of China for over 700 years. So it just went back and forth at some point. They
Okay.
just changed it due to strategical reasons. So as I told you, it has over 3,000 years of history.
Mhm.
Quite a large, considering Argentina has only 200.
Mhm.
It was unified by the first emperor of China in 221 before BC. So before that, it was part of other smaller empires. And it had a very strategic location. So it was surrounded by mountains. And so it could be protected from the Manchus and the Mongols. And at the same time, it was connected to the Yangtze River. So, as you know, most of the capitals in this world, they would somehow find a way to be connected so that they could be delivered goods, food, and whatnot. So that's the case of Beijing.
Mhm.
Now, Beijing, people, like any other capital in Europe, maybe they will say, oh, okay, let me just spend 2 days and get an idea or a little bit of a flavor.
2 days.
Beijing doesn't allow that.
How many people live in Beijing anyway?
I think it's the second largest city in China. I think about 20 million probably.
How are you gonna spend 2 days in a 20 million populated city and get an understanding of how the city is?
Well, don't you get all these bus tours in Europe, seeing one day Venice and then one day Rome, and then they jump over and they do one day in Madrid?
So in 2000
It's
in 2018 was 21.5 million population.
there you go.
Yeah,
Thank you very much for
very
that.
very good call. Well done. Okay, so we scrap the 2 days.
um,
What would you say it's a good
yes.
time to, like, how long? What time frame? How many days we should spare? Don't tell me a month.
Well, I no,
Don't tell me
I
a
would
month.
do a month. I would certainly consider 4 days, and after that, I would take a day off because you will be exhausted.
I can imagine. Yeah.
But yes,
Especially, I
when
would
you go
assume
to
in Beijing, it's always like boom, boom, everything's so fast. Streets are
exactly,
all overpopulated as well. That will exhaust you. That would add more exhaustion. So definitely,
it
I'm up for
does.
the day off. I understand what you say.
Most definitely. If you're an active person, and I think if you're checking this podcast, it's because you want to see stuff, you want to learn about the culture. So you would be up for a big walk and 4 days of active learning about China. But trust me, day five, just go and find one of the many beautiful cities that are only one probably train away from Beijing and take a day off and just have a foot massage, very common in China. Have a back massage, very common and very cheap in China. It's very much part of their culture. They always get food and they always get back massages. Go have some tea, go have some beer, which is very common for Chinese people to, after 6 p.m., go and drink a lot of beer. So just take a day off. That's my suggestion.
Is it Tsingtao that they're
Um,
drinking?
They Qingdao, they have there's many types of beer. The reason why Qingdao is so famous is because Qingdao is a city actually,
Hmm.
on the coast of China, and that was a colony given out to Germany. So when Germany took over, what did they decide to do? To explore the industry of beer. So
Hmm.
breweries they started in China in Qingdao thanks to the Germans.
When was that?
So oof, I think it was probably 200 years ago. I think it has to do with the Opium Wars. I would
Okay.
have to go back and check. So 1800s, I
Mm-hmm.
would assume.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why you have even the Oktoberfest in China in
Wow.
Qingdao.
Is it just in
So people go
Qingtao
there
or in other
in
places as well?
Qingdao. No, the
Only there.
biggest one is in Qingdao.
Wow.
Yeah. So I have had friends who go and drink a lot of beer during the Oktoberfest. They love it. Yeah, so that's the story. With Beijing, as I'm telling you, there's a certain way of going around the city I find is more useful so that you can pretty much get a sense of the city and grow as the days go by and understand a little bit more. So let me just give you a little bit of a tour.
Okay.
What I have done when I was in Beijing is I always make sure I stay in the city center, especially the first time you go to Beijing, because that's where you still have a lot of the hutongs. The hutongs are the small alleyways, so very traditional, ancient looking, old houses, old structures. They're unfortunately disappearing, and this has brought up a big condemnation by the public because big companies want to settle in, but there's still some beautiful alleyways you can find in Beijing, and you will feel like you're going back in time, probably 200 years back. So you stay in the city center, and unless it's Monday, which is the one day when the Forbidden City is closed, you will start walking very early in the morning, and you will make your way towards the Forbidden City. You need to start with the Forbidden City. It's unbelievable.
Which city?
So Forbidden City. So that's where you see the big painting of Mao. That's so everybody could, every time you see propaganda from the Chinese government,
Okay.
you see the Forbidden City. So that's the translation, actually. That's how people, foreigners call it. It's actually called the Grand Palace in Chinese. It's
Mhm.
called the Gugong. So that's if you look at any kind of image, you will see, you've seen it a million times. So it still has the huge portrait of Mao right in the middle. So that's the imperial palace. That's where all the emperors lived in the past. Why was it called the Forbidden City? Simply because normal citizens like you and I were not allowed in.
Hmm.
But that also meant that the emperors were not allowed out. They would spend their whole lives inside those walls. So, as much, well, there you go.
There you go. The Forbidden City looks stunning. Okay, so
It's huge.
we
It's
you
absolutely huge.
definitely need to spend time in the Forbidden City.
Yes, just
Okay.
make sure at some point you walk out because if you want to really see it, you would spend a month inside. So, top attraction, Qing Dynasty, restored, looking beautiful. That's the Forbidden City. Make sure you don't go on a Monday because it's going to be closed.
Okay.
And make sure you reserve your ticket online because now you cannot really queue the way you used to in the past when I
Hmm.
moved to China.
Hmm.
So things are changing. Anyways, so what do you have in front of the Forbidden City? You have Tiananmen Square. Unfortunately, maybe you've heard about Tiananmen because of the 1989 it's called incident, which was not an incident actually. There was a huge clash between the government and protesters, which were a lot of them mostly students. So that's the famous Tiananmen, which means that Tian means heaven or uh, sky. I think it's like the heaven gate. They call it that, or peaceful gate or something like that. So that's the most beautiful square I've seen for me. It's huge buildings. You have the National Museum. You have Mao's mausoleum. You have hundreds of people taking pictures because that's where you can actually see the entrance to the Forbidden City. So people are always across from the Forbidden City
So
taking pictures.
The Forbidden City basically is a massive square with a lot of big buildings, and every building is something different, like mainly museums.
So you have the Tiananmen Square. That's where you will find yourself before you walk into the building or before you walk into this amazing palace, which is actually a city. That's why it's called the Forbidden City. It's gigantic. So before you go into the city, this Forbidden City, you will find yourself in the fantastic and very famous worldwide Tiananmen Square. So a square, it's huge. It's probably 300 meters long, and that's where you have all these huge buildings, museums, and everything. That's where you will take the initial picture because you will say, I want to take a picture saying, I was here, I'm in Beijing, I was at the Forbidden City. So you will go to the Tiananmen Square. Then you will cross the street and you will form a line for a little while. Why? Because this is probably the most secure place in China. Just look up and try to see the amount of security cameras. Probably it's gigantic. You will find probably 20 to 30 cameras on every single spot.
Huh.
It's insane the amount of security. So once you make your way into the Forbidden City, you
Yeah.
will give your ticket, you will show your phone, and then you get through security and you're inside the Forbidden City.
Hmm.
Then you will probably take about 3 hours because after that you will be exhausted. Um, exactly. See that entrance? Can you see below that little image? That's
Yeah, at the very
Mao.
bottom. Ah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
This is a
And see that
massive, massive
huge,
thing. Yes.
it's massive.
Maybe you should.
And they say there's,
Maybe you should find a room in the Forbidden City and stay there for 2 days.
oh, that would be the dream. Tell, let me tell you, it's the dream of any person. But yes, you would not be allowed. I think only about 30% or 20% of all these different areas are actually allowed to be visited. All the other places are closed. So you
Wow.
can see, as you can see, there's different halls or different stages. You will start with the first one, moving on to the second one, and at some point you will
Yeah.
move on to the center one. That's where the last emperor apparently used to spend most of his time.
Ah.
Emperor Pu. So lots of people go early in the morning and be ready to be amazed. And at some point, be ready to be, for me, it became a little bit claustrophobic because it's so many walls. Um, it's just a huge fortress.
When was
That
this
was the
built?
idea behind it. 1400s.
1400s.
So yes, it took apparently over 100,000 people to build it.
Mm.
It was truly meant to represent the vastness of the empire, the Chinese empire.
Is this far away from
So
the city center?
this is exactly the city center. So
Oh wow.
Beijing, it started off from this particular point. So this is the heart of Beijing.
Oh, same like
And then
the
China,
Tower of London in a way. Tower of London is roughly in the city center, and that's around the Tower of London. That's how
okay.
the city started, and then it started to expand
Oh,
later on.
that's exactly how it was. So this area
Interesting.
was locked in. You could not walk in. As I told you, that's why it was called the Forbidden City. And then it started expanding. Now we have 6 rings. So people in Beijing will tell you, oh, in which ring do you live? So the more the city expands, the more rings you will get. I think up till now they have 6 rings, which are, of course, you can reach them via subway. The subway system in China is very developed. It's very vast. So it's very easy to move around, to be very fair. Um, so yes, that's point number one in Beijing. You do not start anywhere else. You start with the Forbidden City and you start with Tiananmen.
Okay.
Then
Yeah. Then.
hopefully you finish after 3 hours and you say, I'm done with this. And then you walk out and you start walking. Try to have some water with you because everything in China is long distance. So when you're walking, make sure you have very comfortable footwear because going to Tiananmen and the Forbidden City and walking out, probably at that point you would have done 6 to 7 kilometers because it's huge. Everything takes a lot of time. So my recommendation is if you have good weather, you go and have some nice lunch. You find some of the places that are around the area. Make sure you're aware of the scammers. There's many scammers around the Forbidden City, and they're very famous. So you will have young boys and young girls coming up and talk to foreigners and say, "Oh, I want to practice my language. Would you like to have a tea together?" And unfortunately, there's a lot of scams happening. So make sure you do your research and just say thank you and walk away.
So what happens if
Um,
you agree and go and have a tea with them?
then you will get a bill for approximately 100 euros because they say that tea was very special. And there's
Oh,
a, yeah, they
I've
have a deal
actually,
with the owner of that
I
little bar.
see, I see. I've actually heard about something like that.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, not. I think I read it somewhere or somebody told me about. But now that you said, because I didn't know where this is gonna go, but now that you said, it rings a bell. So interesting. So there are these
Interesting.
places that are known for this thing. So if I
Yes.
go in the same place, but nobody brought me there, will I still be charged horrendously?
I don't think you would want to go in there. They told me they looked a little bit sketchy. I had my close friend, she actually fell for this. But they're little bars, they don't really say anything. You wouldn't really pay attention to them, but that's how they operate, as far as I know. You can even read it on the Lonely Planet. I wish I would have read it before I went to Beijing because I was shocked by probably 3 to 4 times having the same experience of people uh, constantly hassling me to have a tea together and to learn more about myself. It was very strange.
Hmm,
Um, but yeah,
interesting.
it's
I just,
yeah, anyways.
I just opened
I
the subway map and I can say
oh, there you
holy,
go.
I can say holy moly.
Yes, yes, exactly.
This is crazy.
So that's yeah. So if you see, let me try to
So how
find
many
it.
lines there? 10? 10?
I
10?
remember there were
10?
13.
11?
Oh, 13. There you go. 13.
13. Oh, yeah, 30 on the left one.
Yeah.
I keep looking on the. Yeah, 13 lines of underground
Yes.
system. Like, this is madness. What are you looking for?
I'm trying to. If you can see the line 4, it has like a square shape, more or less.
Yeah, that's the circle line in London.
So,
Yes.
well, there you go.
Okay.
I remember that one. Well, right in the center, you should have Tiananmen. Because again, everything starts from Tiananmen and from the Forbidden City. That's the heart of Beijing.
Okay.
Then it just starts moving, like all the lines go outwards.
Hmm.
So, yeah, but it's very easy to find yourself. Why? Because China has the written system, the way you actually write. And then there's this system, which is called pinyin, which means they're written in the way we can understand them. So the way it would be pronounced. So this allows foreigners and people who don't really read Chinese to actually be able to communicate or at least read the signs.
Ah,
So you will always see the Chinese writing,
yeah,
and you will see the pinyin underneath.
that's very helpful.
So
Thanks,
exactly.
thanks, China. Thanks for thinking of us.
Thank you, China. Well, it wasn't really thinking of us, it was thinking of themselves because they had such high levels of the population that was not able to write or read, that because their language is very, very complex, there's over 50,000 characters.
Yeah, so I've
So,
heard. Yes.
exactly. So, what did they do? They decided to, first of all, simplify the language. So, you have simplified Chinese. So all the characters look very similar, but a little bit more simplified. And then they developed this pinyin system. So
Mhm.
this way they can teach people how to read and write. So this is how it works. So they were helping themselves.
So how many?
Now they're
So,
helping
so once
us.
again, Chinese has how many characters? 5,000, you said?
No, 30 to 50,000.
Oh, 50,000. So how many characters the simplified had?
It's the same. It's just they look more simple.
Okay, doesn't seem so much simpler. What you say, but anyway. Okay, Forbidden
Yeah.
City. What else? Let's do two more.
So let me tell you one thing. You walk out of the Forbidden City
You
and
wanna
you will
die.
feel so overwhelmed.
You wanna feel
Exactly. That
tired.
you will go, you will have a beer, you will relax, and then you will say, it's close to 5 p.m. What should I do? You will go back to the back. So the northern gate, you will walk in through the south gate. And you will walk out through the north gate of the Forbidden City. After you have your lunch, your little excursion, relaxing time, you will go back to the northern gate of the Forbidden City. You will cross over across from the Forbidden City. There's this beautiful park that many people don't really remember to
Hmm.
even pay attention to. It's called the Jingshan Park. Jingshan Park is a park that was built upon. It has a little hill, which is very strange for Beijing because it's very there's you will not get any hills in Beijing. It's very straight.
Hmm.
But why do you have a hill? Because they used the earth that they took out for the construction of the Forbidden City, and they placed it on this little hill, on this little area across from the Forbidden City. So this also has a big meaning for feng shui. You need to have something to lay your back upon to relax or to guard you. So that's why they had this little hill. Why then should we go to this park? Because you can go up the hill, which only takes you probably 7 minutes or 10 minutes to go up. And if you have a clear day, you will be able to look at the Forbidden City from above. So you
Mm.
get all the lights, you get the most beautiful sunset, you get a little temple on top. So you feel like, okay, I did the big job. I saw the Forbidden City from within. Now let me actually see the whole complex. Um, so yeah, there's nothing like Jingshan Park. I went to the Forbidden City only once, but every time I go to Beijing, I bring my mates and I go to the top of the Jingshan Park in the evening, and you will see people dancing, people playing chess, families moving around, people jogging. You will see true Chinese culture.
Mhm.
So that's the Jingxin part.
I see.
And then that's day number 1.
Okay.
Day number 2, you will go to the Great Wall. So you will wake up very early and go to the Great Wall. And day number 3, hopefully you will still have some energy.
So hold on, let's keep it to the wall a bit before we go day number 3.
No.
How far you don't like the wall?
So much information.
Okay, but I
People will be
understand, but you
exhausted.
didn't tell us anything about the wall. Let's have a tiny bit about the wall. So first of all, how far is
Okay.
it from Beijing city center where you're staying?
I would say an hour and a half.
Okay, hour and a half, and then you're gonna spend all
Yes.
day there, you say?
I would say when I did it, I left very early, like 7 in the morning, because I did it myself. I didn't want to do a tour. I remember the Lonely Planet. It was very useful. And I went to there's different sections to the Great Wall. The
Yeah.
Great Wall, people keep on talking, right? Like
Mhm.
it's one Great Wall. No,
No.
it's all little bits of wall. So some have been reconstructed, some look a little bit less well kept, some are more beautiful, some are more touristy,
Uh-huh.
and some are less visited, which is the best idea. So the one I would recommend to go to is Mutianyu. This is the one I keep on going to because it is touristy, but Chinese people don't usually choose this one as an
Why?
attraction. Chinese people, I don't want to say in general, like any other culture wouldn't do it, but Chinese people tend to always follow one line. So most Chinese people like to go to another section called Badailing.
Oh, what? Batailin.
Exactly. Badailing is another one, but if you want to see Chinese craziness, go to Badailing. Every picture I've seen is thousands and thousands of Chinese people lining up. You go to Mutianyu, and seriously, I've always been very comfortable. Exactly.
So that's the Batailin.
See,
And you
that's
see that these are all Chinese, they're not tourists here.
yes.
Wow.
I've never really run into many people, and I always went to a very touristy one. Mutianyu is really touristy and very well preserved. It looks very beautiful. So do that one. Oh my God, yes, that's summer in China.
So many tourists. So, but
So
okay, so
you will go to Mutianyu.
okay, I need to find out. So that's Mutiali. Do I say it correctly?
Mutianyu.
Mutianyu.
MU.
Okay,
Good.
okay.
TIAN.
So Mutianyu is is
Good.
is where it's hour and a half and it's not that crowded.
Exactly. And it's beautiful and it has a toboggan. So you can actually slide down from the top once you're done with your day tour. It's really cool. It's really nice. So yeah, it's a nice thing. It's yeah, it's cute.
Okay, I think I found the
But,
correct one.
yeah.
It's north from Beijing, isn't it?
Probably Great Wall Historic Wall. There's many. Let's see. Oh, there you go, Mutianyu. There you go.
Mutian Valley. I told you I found it.
Yeah, nice.
North of
See,
China.
and it's
No,
for example, the first time I went there, I went up. You can pay for, like if you go skiing, you can take that lift. You can take the same lift when you pay for the entrance to the Great Wall. You can take this lift,
Mhm.
the chair. But I decided to walk, and it was probably no more than 45 minutes or 40 minutes, and you arrive at the top. If you're very exhausted, you don't do it.
Okay.
But the truth is, there's 3,000 meters, 3 kilometers worth of wall at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you get a clear day and just walk. There's no rush for anything. And then when you go back down, what people usually do, if you have a group of 3 people, for example, or 4,
Yeah.
take a taxi. And the taxi driver will wait for you and they will drive you back to the city. So it's as
Oh, they're
easy
gonna
as it
wait
gets.
for you. Oh, okay.
Yes, they will. Very much because you will not pay them. So you
Oh,
will pay them when you get on the taxi back. No, but
oh,
they're very respectful. They're committed. They have one traveler and they will take care of that traveler. They're very respectful.
mhm. So
So
the
anyways,
the Chinese
that's the
wall was
Great
built
Wall.
because they wanted protection against the, was it the Mongols?
The Mongols, the Manchus, but as I told you, they were built around different even dynasties. So the protection was afforded against many different civilizations.
Hmm.
How effective was it? Not really. It wasn't very effective. But it did help in terms of surveillance. So because it was really high above, they could, for example, inform other parts. They could light a fire
Okay.
and somehow inform other areas that they were being invaded.
Hmm.
So it was more about initially about protection, but it ended up being more about surveillance.
Okay, I
That's how it
understand. Oh,
was.
do you have something curious for us for the wall?
The wall, yes. There's this part. I didn't go there, but my best friend did, and many foreigners are now choosing this.
Yeah.
There's the Jingshanling. This is another option instead of Mutianyu.
Okay.
Jingshanling is 50% has been restored and 50% is not restored. So you're walking into part of history. Why? Because Beijing is such a huge touristy attraction that all the places you visit, they look very well kept, they look very beautiful. But once you start visiting other regions within China, you will see that maybe places don't look as perfect because they haven't been restored as much. So you get to have this experience in the actual Great Wall. How? By not choosing Badailin, by not choosing Mutianyu, but actually choosing what is it? Jingshanling. Jingshanling has this option. So you go up, you see the most restored part, which is really beautiful, and then you can go off the track. And then you start seeing like the boulders. You actually see stones on the side. So you get to be part of history. That's
Mm,
amazing. So
I like
yeah,
that.
that's my next one.
I
Yeah.
like that.
And
Uh,
if you have more time and if you have some cash, there's I don't know how legal it is, but I know most foreigners do this. You can camp by the Great Wall.
ah,
So this is unbelievable, and I think many hostels they offer this opportunity. So they will take you there, and you can spend the night and sleep by the Great Wall. It doesn't get any better than that. Imagine waking up in the morning, sun is rising, and all you see is that beautiful dragon tail. Unbelievable. In the middle of the mountains.
wow. Wow. Even if you are not a camping person, that does sound very
Right,
adventurous.
exactly.
Mm.
And if you choose the right time,
Yeah.
probably after the COVID, we have marathons, one marathon a year on the Great Wall.
On the wall.
And yes,
Hmm.
so I didn't dare to do it last time. And you also have festivals.
Ah.
So electronic music, international festivals by the Great Wall. So you can have a huge day party at the Great Wall. So
Okay.
that's unbelievable.
Interesting. Okay. What
So
about the third place that we can see?
the third place that you will see is as I told you, we started the Forbidden City, huge structure, beautiful, amazing architecture, but closed up. It was That's where the emperor would spend his whole life without seeing any of the exterior. So what did they do? They decided to create their own summer palace. The summer palace is on the northern part of the city. It's actually the new summer palace. It's another huge structure. It's like a small village in Argentina. That's how big it is.
Yeah.
And that's where you will get to see the splendor. Yes, that's what it is. So that's why I'm saying you start with the Forbidden City, and once you visit the Summer Palace, you will never want to go back to the Forbidden City because this place is so green. It's imperial. It has been reconstructed. Every picture you take will be a postcard. It has a beautiful lake, which is called the Kunming Lake, because Kunming is the capital of the southern province Yunnan.
So
You can rent a bike
is this like the Forbidden City but in a nicer version in a way?
in a summer version.
Summer version. Okay.
That's why it's a summer palace. So, what did they do with the emperor? Because he was not allowed to have a normal life. Well, during the summer, Beijing is really hot. It's located in the northern part of China. So, I'm sure that city was terribly, terribly hot. And of course, like claustrophobic, as I told you. So, they created this amazing summer palace where they would find refuge during the summer days. So, they would just pretty much move the whole court over to the summer palace. And it's unbelievably beautiful. It's my favorite place probably in Beijing. It's incredible. So yeah, that's where you spend your third day. Bring some picnic stuff, sit down. You can rent even roller skates, and you can just the rollerblades just go around the lake. It's huge. So just start with the west gate and make your way through it.
Hmm.
So
Okay. Well,
that's how you spend
fabulous.
day three.
Fabulous. Day
Yeah,
3.
very
Okay.
good.
Let's go to day 4 and wrap it up, I think, for this
Okay.
episode.
Yes. So what you will do is once you're done with the summer palace, again, you go out, you go look, you will do your research.
Yeah.
You have a lot of Chinese food. Beijing is known for its culinary culture. You can have all the traditional food you want. You can have all the beautiful international dishes you want. And you will take a day off. So fourth day, you can do shopping. That's a big reason why people come to Beijing as well.
Okay.
You have the pearl market, you have the silk market, all the real brands, which are not really real, but they're affordable. And if you go to some of those stores, they look absolutely real. Even the silk market, they will make you feel like you're in probably in Louis Vuitton or yes, exactly.
Okay, so you can go in the
That's the
pearl
point.
market and you find all jewelries in a way, like cheap,
Yeah,
not so expensive, I would say, from the pictures I see. They're not like high end, but
exactly. It
they're
depends. It depends. That's the pearl market. Now, what used to be the silk market, which is where all the foreigners would come, they've really turned it up a notch and it's very high end. You can get some places that, as I told you, they look like Louis Vuitton. They have all the same. That's not, yeah, that's probably what it used to be like before. You can get beautiful perfumes. You can get beautiful, sometimes even like designer clothes.
yeah.
You can get the most amazing glasses, designer glasses, everything. But of course, different price because it's not the real thing. So that's the silk market. And you will get to see how a vendor really works, how salespeople work. They will speak any language you speak. So there's no hiding information from
How
them.
about
They,
negotiating the prices? Do they like that?
oh, good luck with that because they will.
Because I know some cultures
I
they would actually feel offended if you don't try to negotiate. So I just want to see how
oh,
Chinese are.
I think silk market now it's becoming very exclusive, but all these places, what for example, I remember buying my jacket for approximately $20, and the starting price was probably $200.
Ooh.
So you start by cutting it in half. You just go half. They said 2,000 kwai, and I was like, no, 600. Oh no, of course not. I ended up paying 200 instead of 2,000. So it was bargaining, bargaining. Now it's not as much. As I'm telling you, China is moving forward really, really fast. But nonetheless, silk market, you can find beautiful quality. Pearl market, good. Probably not as high end as the silk market, but cheaper prices and still very nice quality.
Mhm.
So do a little bit of shopping, go to the little alleyways and get lost over there. Grab your Lonely Planet and follow the bike route because you can just it's a beautiful city to have a bike and just get lost and find yourself. Why? Because it has rings, so it's very geometrical, so
Okay.
very easy to move around.
And
That's Beijing.
okay, do you think we need to cover day 5 briefly, or we're okay with 4 days?
I think with 4 days you've done enough with
4 days.
Beijing. There's a million temples. You can just choose whichever is best for you. You can grab a bike. That's what I did. That's what I would do. You go to the little hutongs. You go and have a drink at night. There's amazing bars. The nightlife in Beijing is unprecedented. You can hear the best music, have the best drinks. Make sure you have the Beijing duck, which is the most traditional dish, and it comes from Beijing.
Mhm.
Uh, so just eat good food, have good drinks, walk a lot, and buy some nice things to bring back home.
Yeah, as you said, you just mentioned my next question. You said eat good food. I just didn't want to finish this
Yes.
episode without talking about food because we mentioned like go to a restaurant, have some food. Like, what is good food? What do we eat there?
Oy. So, as I told you, there's a reason why Beijing is the capital. You can find anything you want. Traditional food from the northern area of China, you will have a lot of dumplings. So, dumplings are like the gyoza, I think they call them in Japan. In Chinese, they're called jiaozi. As you can see, it's very close. And dumplings is in English. So, they're pretty much like the raviolis, and
Mhm.
they're generally steamed, and you have them just with a little bit of soy sauce. You can have vegetarian ones. You can have with meat. I personally now choose everything vegetarian. You can have Muslim places because one of the minorities in China is Muslim. So you will have many, many, many restaurants that are halal.
Mhm.
That's
So, is
everything
it
for
dumplings
sure.
uh the most consumed food in a way?
It's the easiest to be consumed. So it's very handy. You just go, have a few dumplings, you just eat and go.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think it's so convenient. Then you have the morning version, which is the baozi, which are these like steamed buns. You
Mm-hmm.
see, they
The
look very similar.
I ate char siu ban, which is has barbecued pork.
Okay,
They're quite nice.
there you go.
Yeah,
But if you go, I would have to remember the place,
these
but
ones you're talking about, right? Like fluffy
exactly.
bun. So that's what you say. It's more for breakfast.
That's what you have in the morning usually.
Interesting.
Yes,
Very very
definitely.
interesting.
Very, very good. They're very nice in the morning. You can have vegetable ones. As you know, Chinese people in the morning, they will not have a toast. They will not have a coffee. They will probably have some soy milk, like warm soy milk
Mhm.
with a baozi on the go. So you will see a lot of street vendors, even nowadays.
Hmm.
And you just quickly grab a baozi and you keep on walking. That's what they do. They eat food. They don't eat bread or any of those things. It's something new for them. So yeah,
Okay.
just grab one and keep on walking. That's what you do.
Okay.
And if
I
you have time, just have some pork. There's a lot of meat going on in the north of China. So have the Beijing duck, have dumplings, have a lot of rice. That's what everybody does.
rice. Yes.
Um, there's a lot of dishes. We can have a whole section about food. It's way too important for their culture. So just make sure you go to a nice restaurant and choose based on the restaurant that has pictures. Why? Because some restaurants still rely on a menu that has no pictures. For a foreigner, that would make it impossible to choose.
So is it the menu
So,
in Chinese as well?
of course, it is.
Wow, 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 wow.
Everything will be in
How do you
Chinese.
even order?
You find a restaurant with images.
um,
Make sure there's pictures. So that's how you do. Even when I could speak Chinese, I remember many times choosing something and then getting something completely different. So choose one with good
pictures.
pictures, and then yes, and just give it a try. It's China is all about the food. We can have a separate podcast about food, but
That's very
just make sure
very
you try the Beijing duck.
That's very Beijing duck. Okay, make sure to try Beijing duck and dumplings. What something
Exactly.
that struck me when I was working in ping pong is um, that the China. What I found out that the Chinese people will have the dumplings not with beer but with tea.
Yes, that's why when you told me about something that's very cultural, it's water. They have tea with everything. At some point, they will move on to the beer part, but everything goes with hot water. Especially, it can be a very light tea. They don't do teas like we do in the Western region, so or in the West. They always have just a little bit of flavor, just to make sure that it helps digestion. So they will never you. It's very difficult, for example, to ask for ice cubes, even in the summer,
Mm.
because they don't believe in the separate, like having a colder temperature within your body than the
Outside.
exterior
Hmm.
or ambient. Well, exactly. So everything is about tea all the time. So it's just part of the culture. It's beautiful. It's
Okay.
very healthy.
Okay. Yeah. That's why probably they live long. I think they live long. They have long life
Yeah, they do.
expectancy. Okay, that was fabulous. I
Yes.
think we covered a 4 day trip in China. What to do with general Chinese culture and curiosities in a way as well, food and drinks briefly. That was really good. Before we finish, I would like to ask you to do a closing statement from your side. So, surprise, you didn't prepare for that, did you?
I did not.
Oops.
You wanted to surprise me, right?
Yeah. So if
Good.
you can just say, I don't know, maybe wrap it up for the whole China subject, Beijing subject, or maybe a message to the viewers and listeners, like whatever you feel like
Yes.
sharing. Now is the time to share it.
Good. You come to China, guys. Before you do, number one, make sure your phone is working properly. Two, make sure your phone is hopefully not a Google based phone, because Google doesn't work in China, please. So make sure you have an Android or an iPhone, of course. It's big. Make sure you have VPN. What is this? This is the proxy server, which means once you set it on, you go into China and you will still be able to use Google. You will still be able to use Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Otherwise, you will not. Even WhatsApp has been restricted in China. So, VPN is the way a foreigner survives in mainland China.
But you'll be able to use
Uh,
TikTok.
Yeah, it's called. What? I haven't really used it. That I'm more of the boring person, but yes, you will be. Good one. Very updated. Your comment, and come for the culture. Don't
Yes.
start with Beijing. Start with Beijing. Of course, you need the dynasties. You need to see imperial China, but then get lost in the provinces. Go to the south, see the minorities, go to the Tibetan area. You will never feel the same again. You will never experience the world again in the same way. It changes you. It really does. So make sure you have good internet, get a good SIM card. If you can wait a little bit of time and do it at a proper shop where you can get an actual SIM card. Get a good plan for a month or two, and then travel. Take if you can take a month, do a month in China. That's how you will probably leave the country saying like, "Wow, I understand a little bit of China." Start with Beijing, go to the provinces, and don't miss out on the minorities. It will never be the same. It's beautiful.
That was a
That's
beautiful.
China.
That was beautiful wrap up. Thanks so much. I was just sitting here and listening, like, wow, wow. Okay, I have to
Yay!
check the flight.
Yes, good. After COVID. After
Of
COVID.
course, of course. Not now, not now.
Good.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
Jules, thanks so much. I'm serious. Actually, let's have another talk and discuss the next location, your second city. What was the name
Yeah.
again?
We can go to Hangzhou
Hangzhou.
or we can go to the province I told you about with the minorities. We can go to Yunnan with the Tibetan minority.
Oh, or maybe we can go to the both at the same time. Would that be possible or not enough?
We can
We
try.
can try.
I need to prepare some pictures.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we go to the next level of preparation. Checking pictures now.
Exactly. Okay.
Okay,
But
Jules.
yeah, thank you so much, Pavel. You're a beautiful moderator. You're the best host ever.
Am I? Why do you think that?
Because you keep it interesting all the time and you keep on smiling and making us feel like we're the best at describing a place. So thank you. Thank you. I
Thanks so
really
much.
appreciate it.
I recorded a few weeks ago. I recorded with a couple from UK, and that was the episode about Slovenia and Maribor. And I got an email after that. Thanks so much. You are You did really well. You're one of the best hosts we ever had, because sometimes I listen to podcasts and I keep shouting to the host, shut up, just let the guest talk, like shut up. But you did very well. Thanks so much. So coming from you,
No,
from another person, that is very much appreciated. I thank so much for saying that.
no, very smart. And I can see you've traveled a lot. Very good comments. So thank you.
And you froze. That was weird.
Hey.
That was awkward. You froze.
On my back?
Oh, you're back now. Yeah.
Okay, good. So, anyways, what I'm saying is thank you for traveling so much. If we have a podcast about traveling, we need people who have traveled
Yeah.
and really paid attention to different cultures. So keep on doing that
Yeah.
so
I
that you can
agree.
be this
I agree.
great host you are.
Yeah. Oh, thanks so much. Whoever, if you're listening, share this, please. Share it so many people, more people can
We
find
shall.
it. Yeah. Okay, Jules, thanks so much for joining. I'm sure the Curious Nation also is very thankful for you. You showed us China. I want to go to China. I want to go to Japan. I don't know when that's gonna happen, but that's a really good startup point from what you said. Thanks so much. I'm looking forward to welcome you in another episode. And for now, I wish you a fantastic day.
Have a good one. Have a good one, Pavel, and everyone else. Have a good day.